I've talked to so many trans kids, and I've talked to parents. There's perception and misinformation that these are liberal parents who are trying to trans their kids because they want to be social status for having a trans child. And it's so far from the truth. Almost all the parents that I talk to struggled with the fact that their kid is trans, wondering what it is that they do, seeking help from sources, and learning that the way to help them the best is to affirm them.
This is the Transparency Podcast Show.
Happy Pride and welcome back to the show. We are continuing on our 2023 Pride Month special episodes. So today I also have another return guest. Her name is Jessie McGrath. How are you?
Hey, Shelby. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, no problem. It's our pleasure to have you on our show because we've been talking about a lot of politics stuff and it affects the entire LGBT plus community. So you're here today is very perfect because I know you just went through a legislation bill and it's in your hometown, right?
Back in my home state of Nebraska, yeah. It was at the end of last year, as I was seeing the increasing number of anti-trans legislation being proposed around the country, I knew I had to do something. Yeah. And so I'd kind of made a pledge to myself that I was going to go to one state and try to fight it. A few years ago, but I think it was back in 2016, I went to Texas to lobby against, I think it was SB6, which was the bathroom bill. And so I went with a couple of friends to the Capitol and did some lobbying there. And so I just knew that I had to get involved. I did not think I was going to be going to my home state to do this. That was not on my bingo card for 2023.
Yeah, it's been very wild and crazy. And just like I said, I usually don't talk about politics, but this time I decided to open up because I feel this show, this platform has, the responsibility to have another voice, our voice, because I've been seeing, a lot of not just the mainstream news, but a lot of people that I kind of follow as a business, and they also, has a different opposite view. And so that's why I decided to do this special episodes. And so you want to kind of describe and let the audience know if someone doesn't know what this bill is about? Sure.
And the reason this bill came to my attention was my former insurance agent from my hometown back in Nebraska, who's like 85 years old. He contacted me because he was, they also did a sports and bathroom one for schools. And he was really opposed to that because he's a coach and he knows, he just wanted, to let kids be kids and play. Right. And so he contacted me because of course family knows I'm trans. And so he alerted me to the two bills. And so I looked at it, saw that it was, coming up almost immediately for hearing. And so I took some time off, went back to Nebraska. I testified against this bill, which is LB574. The sports one was LB575, but it never made it out of committee. LB574, as it was introduced, banned gender-affirming care, any surgical procedures, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and I think to the extent even it was no therapy. It was very, very damaging to trans youth's access to healthcare, and it was similar to bills that were introduced in other states.
Yeah. So does this bill only limited to the child, or?
It was anyone under 19 because Nebraska is a unique state in a lot of ways. The age of majority there is actually 19. And so, and it's also a unicameral. They're a single Senate I guess you would say, but we call it the legislature.
Yeah.
There's 49 state senators, and that's it. There's no conference committees going back and forth between House and Senate versions of bills. It's all solely contained within that single body.
Okay. Okay, I see. So, so when you went back there, and what's your experience like? Because I know it's your hometown, and then I'm sure you have a different feeling because you kind of like, why is this happening at your hometown, right?
Why is it happening in my home state? Yeah, because Nebraskans, you have to understand how Nebraska came to be. These were pioneer, rugged individualists, people who broke the mold, who came west and, they homesteaded. And that's why I'm in Nebraska, was from Nebraska, is my great-great-grandmother homesteaded in 1887. And so there was always a mixture of different communities, and we all kind of got along. So I didn't see this really coming out of Nebraska, but as we've seen so often in a lot of places, there has been a turn to the far right, and some people will call it Christian nationalism. I call it extremist religious extremism, because they're trying to enforce religious beliefs, and it's something that was happening in a lot of places, and I just didn't think it was going to happen to Nebraska. And I really love the Nebraska legislature. I worked in the legislature as a legislative aide when I was in college, so I love the unique system that it has. So it was extremely frustrating to get there, and seeing the number of people who were there opposing this bill for the day that they had the hearings. And they basically allocated 3 hours for proponents and 3 hours for opponents.
Wow. So I know you document the entire part of the journey. So we're going to play some for our audience to see.
As you could see, the crowd got bigger and bigger throughout the day.
Keep your hands off my body! Keep your hands off my body! Keep your hands off my body! Keep your hands.
And for some reason, the gal decided she wanted to punch one of the state patrol officers. And there was another man that was getting arrested, who I believe they said was drunk or disorderly and wouldn't leave. And so it got kind of heated. And there were people who were supporting the bill who were walking around with firearms. So because Nebraska allows open carry of firearms in the state capitol. And then this is Senator Kavanaugh, and Senator Hunt, and Senator Day, Senator Blood, all these people who I ended up getting to know, Senator Frederickson. These were the people who led the fight against this horrible bill. And this was right after...
All right.
This is after they ended up losing.
As I have a question, because when I see those clips, there's a lot of kids, like young adults or teenager. Are they all? I don't think they're all trans people. Huh?
No, they're not all trans. They're gender non-conforming, part of the LGBTQ community, or they're just strictly allies. There were people from a lot of different walks, but there were a lot of trans kids who were there. In fact, trans kids testified against this bill, including the daughter, who is now her son, of one of the state senators, Megan Hunt. Her son, Ash, testified against this bill, but yet they still voted to deny him health care.
Yeah, because it's kind of, to me, it's kind of contradictory if they want to protect the kids or the children, but then you see the violence. I think that girl, she looks pretty young. So I don't think this is like protection or any sort of,
Well, it's part of a national strategy that's been put together by groups like the Alliance Defending Freedom, the Family Research Council, and Focus on the Family, and other groups like that are funding this. And they have put out a narrative that trans youth health care is mutilization and sterilization. That is their catchphrase, and they're talking about it. They don't see the joy when somebody has a trans-related surgery and how that makes them feel complete. They call it mutilation, and it's horrible because this is not mutilation. And they say that puberty blockers are not reversible, which most cases they are. They talk about, well, what if they regret the decision? Which is the same thing that they say about women who want to have their tubes tied or their tubes removed. Well, what if you change your mind? It's like, no, I know who I am. I know what I want. And these trans kids know who they are and know what they want. I've talked to so many trans kids, and I've talked to parents, and there's all this perception and misinformation that these are liberal parents who are trying to trans their kids because they want to be some social status for having a trans child. And it's so far from the truth. Almost all the parents that I talked to struggled with the fact that their kid is trans, wondering what it is that they do, seeking help from sources, and learning that the way to help them the best is to affirm them. And for these state senators to want to use the power of government to dictate to these families who are struggling what they can and can't do is just outrageous. It is totally outrageous.
Yeah, because looking at that, the scene has a violent. When I look at it earlier, it made me feel really sad because as an immigrant, my parents want to come here for bigger opportunity for us to have a better education, and our country right now is not even close to that, and it's heartbreaking to seeing those kind of things happen. And
it truly is the division that exists in this country. I mean, I was a Republican, and I guess I have been a registered Republican my whole life, and I was involved in politics from a very young age, and so I've seen it up close and personal. Now, the last 30 years, I was not involved in politics much because I had my job raising kids, and I didn't get involved in that. I mean, for a large part of the time, I was married to a woman who was from the other party, and so it was like we kind of just canceled each other out. But I don't recognize the Republicans that are out there today. I don't recognize the vitriol and the hatred that they're spewing. They seem to think that because they have these Christian views, that everyone should be forced to live under that. And that's not, number one, the Christianity that I know, and that's not the Republicans that I know.
Yeah, because as I post the show on the social media platform, I often get comments like, "Oh, I hope you find Jesus." "Oh, I hope you something like that." And then I do respond in a friendly way. I say, "Well, if you really believe in Jesus, I'm not a Christian, but if you believe in Jesus, then he's telling you to love everyone, right?"
That's what the message of God is supposed to be. Yeah, love everyone.
So everyone, including everyone, not like straight, gay, or trans or non-trans.
Except with some Christian extremists, they have to love you so much that they want to destroy you. And I don't understand
crazy.
that. It's like my stepmom still refuses to accept me. She doesn't accept my lifestyle choice. And it's like, this is not a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my identity. This is who I am.
Right.
I am me 24/7, 365 days a year. And no, it's not a fad or a phase I'm going through. It's been 8 years. No, I am not going to be anybody different than who I am.
Yeah. Besides, like, because you're 8 years, I'm 11 or so years, but we both know we've been feeling that way for decades.
It was. I knew way before that,
Right.
And it was the religious beliefs that I was raised and had that led me to believe that it was a sin, not knowing that God is a beautiful, loving person, and making me transgender was like a gift that God gave me. And I look at it as I spent a large part of my life denying who I was, for thinking it was for God. And when I finally did embrace myself, life became so much incredibly better. I mean, it was like I was incredibly blessed. And I always say to Christians, it's like the verse, God, I formed you in the womb. I knew you before you were born. I'm like, yes, thank you. And you made me this way. And I actually think it's a beautiful thing. And I've gotten to see life from different perspectives, and it gives me so much to be able to give back, because I've seen things in so many different ways.
Yes. So also, we're going to have another clip that you were interviewed by the local news broadcast.
This episode is brought to you by KitCaster. KitCaster books you on top podcasts. How do funded startup founders attract prospects and talent? Podcast interviews. How do entrepreneurs with exits find new deals? Podcast interviews. How do C-suite execs differentiate in crowded markets? Podcast interviews. KitCaster books you on top podcasts. Click the link in the show notes for a special offer. Celebrate good conversation.
They're violating legislative norms in all these states to get these bills passed because, for whatever reason, they think this is a winning election issue. Well, it's not, because people are beginning to react, and they're seeing that we are humans, that we deserve humanity, that we deserve medical care, and we don't deserve what happened in this building here today.
Okay, so did they interview any people in the core, or just?
No, it was actually kind of strange, because I had been in the rotunda for a few minutes while everyone was hugging the senators, and I decided to go out to the north steps to the Capitol, because we were going to have a rally there, and there was not a whole lot of people there at the time, and I was talking with the head of social media for the ACLU Nebraska, and one of the reporters came up for the local news station, and they just asked him if he wanted to make a comment about what happened. He said no. He asked another one of the ACLU staffers if they wanted to do it, and she said no. And he goes, Jesse, do you want to? I'm like, sure, why not? And so that's how I ended up on the news with that one. It was, I just happened to be standing there.
Yeah, it's well, we need somebody in our community to be interview and have a different kind of voice, so that's good for you. And so next thing we want to talk about is healthcare, because you and I both know, if we stop receiving our medications, hormones, we as a person will probably become very, very imbalanced, depressions, and we can't be ourselves. So if we put that, let's say, in a child, like, anyone under 19.
Yeah, it's truly distressing. And they're not just coming after the trans youth healthcare. They're coming for all trans healthcare, and that's been made clear by the American Principles Project. they've started with youth health care
Right.
because they can start saying mutilation and sterilization.
Yes.
And then they can say anybody who supports that is a groomer or a pedophile.
Right.
So it's a way of targeting our community to number one, say we're groomers, mutilators, sterilizers, all of the classic signs of targeting a minority group that you want to exterminate and you want to get rid of. And so they're going to come after the trans health care for adults next. In Nebraska, the way the bill was originally written, it prohibited the surgeries, the blockers, and the cross-sex hormones and therapy, except for probably conversion therapy. That would probably be okay. What they did is when they got to the final vote, I don't think they had enough votes for it, and so they sent it back one level to add an amendment that dramatically changed how it was going to do it. They prohibited surgeries, but they left determination and regulation of the rest of the healthcare to the chief medical officer of the state, the doctor, and then they added a 12-week abortion ban. They had a 6-week abortion ban, that bill that had made it to the final round, but they couldn't end the filibuster on it, and so it died. And so in an effort to get this bill passed, they added a 12-week abortion ban to it. And so it ended up getting enough votes to go back up. And so, yes, they ended up, we lost by one vote. They had just enough votes to end the debate on it, and so it was able to be voted on and passed. And that leads us to where we're at now, which is we don't know what trans youth health care is going to look like in Nebraska until October. We actually don't even know if the children who are currently receiving care are grandfathered in and can continue to do it. There's a lot of confusion in relationship to it. Fortunately, the way they did the bill, which is adding two unrelated things, abortion and trans medical care are kind of really two separate issues. And so the Nebraska Constitution requires that legislative bills be of a single subject. We have, not we yet, but the Nebraska ACLU filed suit last Tuesday against the state, challenging it that the bill is unconstitutional on the grounds that it violated the single subject rule, and they're seeking an injunction. The abortion provisions of the law took effect immediately. The trans healthcare is waiting until October.
And what do you want to talk about? What do you think will happen? Or the results?
If there's applying current law and standards, I would think that it would be found unconstitutional as being two separate subjects. The proponents of the bill are claiming that it's not two separate subjects. It's the regulation of doctors and what medical care that they can give, which is a really broad term, and that's not how it was done. And the thing I think that kind of cooks them or kills them is that there's two separate titles. So it's and one is abortion, one is the about the kids on that. So I think it should get struck down. If not, then they're going to have to challenge the trans healthcare portion of it and get an injunction against that before October. And it's something that we're doing in other states. In fact, Florida just yesterday or last night, I guess it was yesterday evening, had their law struck down as being unconstitutional with a very well-written opinion talking about the evidence and other things that these people are bringing into these hearings is junk and bogus and not backed by legitimate medical knowledge and research. And that's one of the things that that I talked about when I testified against the bill is that you're seeing the same people testifying against. There's only so many detransitioners who have horror stories,
Right.
and they have to move them from state to state. Some have been 11, 12, 13 times testifying at different states, 7 or 8, 9. I mean, we did have one actual detransitioner from Nebraska
Just one.
who did testify. And she also testified, I think, in 5 or 6 other states. So she became a part of the touring show that they have that goes from state to state, saying basically the same thing. And in every state, there are literally hundreds of trans kids and families who are saying, no, this is good. So it's definitely, if it gets looked at in an independent light with somebody who is not running it through the filter of their religious beliefs and their belief that they have the right to dictate how others can live their lives, they don't survive scrutiny.
Yeah. So we have one more clip to show the audience. Is this where is this taking place at? Like, not location, but the timeline.
This was me right outside the Nebraska State Capitol when I was going there to try to lobby some of the senators. And I did manage to get in and spend about a half hour with Senator Murph Reapy, who was the vote that killed the abortion part. And he was kind of bought off, I think, by the 12-week abortion ban to vote for the two of them together. But yeah, I was wearing my Nebraska National Guard sweatshirt, T-shirt, and
most of those are challenged in federal court. But it's
tough going back in there and trying to talk to people whose minds are closed and were pretty well made up. I did talk with probably 3 or 4 different senators.
Americans Defending, or the ADF.
For each of them, they had the reasons why they wanted to do it, but none of them were based on anything that is, actually factual.
Yes, and many of them, they don't know any personal, knowing any trans people.
They want to make
so they,
trans individuals the target of their 2024
you don't want to go back to your
they've ramped it up this year, and they have gone after trans kids. But make no mistake about it,
there's no way that I could ever
they want to eliminate and eradicate trans people.
It's like,
Michael Knowles at the Conservative
I am who I am.
Action
I'm proud of who I am. I love who I am. I feel incredibly
said we
blessed
need
to be trans.
transgenderism in all its forms. Then he backpedaled and said,
it's something that we have to fight for, because they have literally declared war. And the 2024 is going to be even worse than 2023 was, which is incredibly worse than any year in history. So I'm pretty sure that there's been a decision made somewhere along the line. You can see it from what DeSantis is doing in Florida with what these other states are doing to pass these bills, that the next round is going to be targeting trans adults. And so they have stated an avowed goal. I mean, Michael Knowles was at the CPAC and stated that, transgenderism needs to be eradicated in all its forms. And then, of course, he backtracked and said, well, I wasn't saying we eradicate trans people. I'm like, well, if you're eradicating in all of its forms, isn't that kind of advocating the people? Because I'm a form. So, it is truly frightening. There's so many incredible parallels to 1933, 1934 Germany. If you look at what happened there, the Nazis began by targeting specific groups, and it didn't start with rounding everybody up into cattle cars and putting them into the gas chambers. It started slowly, and it started by targeting, in this case, the trans and gender nonconforming community of Berlin. And Magnus Hirschfeld, the doctor who studied this for years and years, had an incredible library. The first book burning by the Nazis was the trans library at his Institute of Sexology in Berlin. And so seeing what they're doing now, trying to ban books, trying to take away healthcare, trying to basically do away with any rights that we have
Right.
to be able to transition. I mean, one of the incredible things that current law allows us to do, at least in most places, is to change our names on our birth certificates and our gender.
Yes.
It allows us to change our passports. We can change our driver's license to conform with who we are and how we live. And they are wanting to target and attack that.
Yeah, I think I just personally experienced what you just said because I changed my name 2016, gender, everything, all my social security card, driver license, and even neutralization certificate. And somehow, California, the state information is not matching rest of my documents. Strange. Yeah, and then I was trying to have the social worker or somebody in the Medi-Cal, it's called benefits Cal, to ask them how can I make the change, and whoever they're speaking to on the other side is from the state, and the guy, I think it was the guy, and the guy was giving me so much hard time. They want me to have a court order, which I have, but it's been a long time. I have to dig it. And then they comes down to ask me for my birth certificate. And, I'm from another country, born from another country, and I'm not even a citizenship of that country anymore. There's no way I can get my birth certificate. So I was really, shocked, to be honest with you, because I think it's kind of, even though we're in California right now.
That's surprising. Was that the DMV or?
No, it's a state.
The state agency somewhere? Oh,
yeah. It's not DMV. It's not Social Security, because all these are already been taken care of. So I was kind of.
So we need to get to the bottom of that. That's definite. But
yeah.
Imagine a world in which no one can change that. That I have to go around with a driver's license that has my old name and says I'm a man. I'm like, okay, nobody mistakes me for a man anywhere, anytime. Okay, and so that's just cruel.
Right.
It really and truly is cruel. And that's kind of, I think, what some of this is all about is listening to some of the interviews of the author of this bill, where she's, talking about it's a social contagion and it's a social issue, and how this was a great victory for conservatives in the social wars. And I'm like, how is my existence a social war? It's like, I was medically treated. This is a real condition. So many people love to say, there are no trans kids. And it's like, well, I know some of them. And so, yes, there are. I was one. There are no trans adults. So, yes, there are. I mean, you may not like it, but that doesn't mean we don't exist. Yeah. I mean, we do.
We even have Jess Jennings. Do you know? Have you heard of her? Jess Jennings?
Jess Jennings?
Yeah.
No.
She has a documentary show. I'm Jess. And she started a show when she's a little girl. She's a big girl.
Jazz. Jazz Jennings. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm like, oh. No.
So she's a little girl when she started the whole thing.
And she was one of the people that was on the brief, the amicus brief that I was on to the Eighth Circuit on the Brandt case out of Arkansas, which we're still waiting for the district court verdict on that. But that was Arkansas made it illegal for trans youth health care. And the ACLU filed suit against them in federal court. The federal judge issued a temporary injunction prohibiting enforcement of it. Arkansas did not like that, so they appealed to the Eighth Circuit. And as part of amicus briefs, I was contacted, and there was like 62 of us. It was Jazz Jennings and Lana Wachowski and Jenny Boylan and Elliot Page, Chris Mosier, Miss Marjorie, and I got to be a part of that. And Jazz was one of those. And we talk about the joy of trans healthcare and the we go from having gender dysphoria to gender euphoria. And it's really because I totally love being me now, where I struggled so hard before. And it really is true for so many trans people. And that's what I think some of these people need to see. They need to see that, look, trans people are not miserable, horrible.
Or mental health or anything like that. We embrace ourselves, right? So.
It takes a lot of self introspection and to be able to come to the conclusion that you're trans. I mean, it's not something that somebody does on a whim. That's what I don't seem to understand. They seem to think, oh yeah, oh look, little Jenny is playing with trucks, so let's call her Joey. That's not how it works.
That's how it works. Yeah. So like I say, I'll come down to if they don't know anybody who's trans, they won't understand. Before we closing the show, I heard among our friends you have a retirement plan for doing something great.
Going back and getting politically active, in my home state, and being back, because I have family back there, and I was always going back to Nebraska for my vacations ever since I left to move out here. So, it's home to me. It's my home. And so it was kind of interesting getting back and getting involved in politics and hearing the frustration of people about how the politics has involved to these, right-wing Republicans, and there were some of them were appointed as senators. So it just got me thinking about, maybe wanting to go home. And I did make a promise to the kids. After the bill passed the second round to the third round, it had to wait a couple of days before they could do the final passage. But I promised them that if it passed, I would come back and I would fight for them. And so I've scheduled an appointment with my retirement association but the first date that they had available was in August. So apparently there's a lot of people looking at retiring and wanting to leave LA or something. I don't know. Yeah. But so in August, I'm going to go talk with them and find out. I have been seriously looking at moving back to Nebraska and deciding which legislative district that I want to move into and potentially run for state legislature back there. So, and it's something I've always kind of wanted to do. I love that system of government, and I hate to see how it got co-opted this last session and what happened with it, because somebody had decided that the most important thing for Nebraska to do in 2023 was ban healthcare for a couple hundred kids.
Yes.
I just don't understand it, because the number of kids is not like there's a huge number of these trans kids. And so it's really something that I'm considering.
I think, like I said before, I think it's just try to redirect our focus on the real problem of this country. Because like you said, there's hundreds, and Tennessee is only probably 3 to 4 trans people, trans kids. So.
And it's like the trans sports bans. It's like, in state of Utah, they did it. There were five kids that were trans identifying. Only one of them was a trans girl. I think in Nebraska, I think somebody told me that there were 3 requests for waivers. So they want to do all of this stuff to affect 3 kids. They want to do the banning of healthcare to affect a couple hundred kids, maybe 1,000. And so it's just the cruelty of that is in it. And one of the state senators that I talked with, her hang up was that Planned Parenthood offered informed consent HRT for 16 through 18-year-old Nebraska girls and boys, I guess, also. And so she thought that was wrong because there was no requirement for any therapy. And anyway, I told her, I said, I can't believe that this is the deal. I said, I'm probably going to come back, and I'm probably going to, get involved in doing some of this stuff. And I sent her an email after she voted against us, and I told her I understood her position, and I thought she was wrong, and that, in the future she'll come back and regret doing that vote. And I said, I'm looking at coming back to Nebraska, and I look forward to working with you on issues like public education funding and middle class tax relief. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of other things that are much more important.
More important, yes.
Than can 100 kids get puberty blockers?
Right. It's just nonsense to me. I don't know. So like last time when you were on the show, you also mentioned about a TV project. So you have a lot of things.
Yeah, and I'm.
How did that go?
As I said, kind of the end of April and beginning of May, we're not all that great because we actually had scheduled a meeting to pitch the head of CBS Studios their development. Head of development there, and we were scheduled for April 26th. And a week before that, WGA, the Writers Guild, authorized a strike authorization, and so we got put off until after the strike is taken care of. And I'm hoping that we get a chance, because it's such a powerful story and it's so well put together by the team that we've got working on this. And it has the ability to maybe change some of the narratives about what trans people are like, and get the understanding that, hey, there are some very responsible and good and smart and talented trans people in the law, in medicine, in engineering, in information security, in banking, in telecommunications. I mean, it's the view that they want to create, that every trans person is Dylan Mulvaney, celebrating our womanhood is just incorrect. We come from all walks of life. We come from all religions. I love it when they say it's a liberal conservative issue, and it's like, no, it's not. I mean, look, as much as I don't like what Caitlyn Jenner says, she and a lot of people around that she knows and talks with are conservative Republicans. I'm still somewhat conservative. I don't know what I'm going to register as when I move to Nebraska. I don't know if I'm going to register as a Republican. I don't know if I'm going to register as an independent or register as a Democrat because my party left me. I haven't made that decision. And the Nebraska legislature is a nonpartisan election. So you don't run as a Republican or a Democrat. It's nonpartisan. There's no party caucuses within the chamber. So it really is a unique system. And I think it is something that could be available to somebody who knows something from both sides and can try to bridge the gap and maybe teach some Republicans to have some empathy. Because that's what seems to be lacking on a lot of it is they don't have feelings for how those actions that they're going to force onto someone will affect them. They know it doesn't affect them because that's what they want to do. But there's a whole slew of people who don't want to do that, and it does affect them, from forcing women who have non-viable pregnancies to be forced to carry, to term solely for the child to either be stillborn or live for 2 minutes because that's some glorious thing that God wanted, or having them be able to terminate that safely and effectively and not have to go through the emotional and physical. They don't have empathy. They really don't. Okay. They have their religious view, and they think that everyone should have that also.
Same. Yeah. Well, so I want to thank you for coming back to the show, and thank you for all you do and will do in the future for us. And if anything I can do, or even this show can do, please let us know.
Well, if I do decide, I'll probably want to come on and announce what I'm going to do, and and let people know how they can help, because One of the things that I am actually contemplating is moving into the district of the author of this bill, who said that next year she's got even more planned for it. I don't know what it is, but I can only assume it's coming after adults. Moving into her district and running against her, and if they want to make this a national referendum on, trans rights, then, what the heck, she might as well run against a trans woman, right?
Yeah. So I guess we will hear from you, have you back on the show around October?
I have to be in a resident of my legislative district by October, registered to vote, and you have to live in the district for a year prior to the election. So the election will be in November of 2024. So that means I want to get in there September, October.
Okay. So we will have you come back and give us a follow-up. Okay.
Thank you so much, Shelby. It's always so much fun.
Same here. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.